first things first is how you generally play the point, right? In most games, this doesn't apply as much to casuals, but once you start getting to higher MMR, then I'm sure you've seen it in your games where you just have a straight up 5v5 teammate or team fight over here, right? This is what's going to happen in the majority of your games. Once you get into higher MMR casuals or in ranked game, we don't see ads on top. They're fine. You're fine. You can see. You can see just fine, man. So once you get into higher MMR in casual games or you play ranked games, most of your initial team fights on Serpent Beach are going to be over here. And then once you go one step further, you're going to have most of the team fight over here. And then you're going to have one or two people try to be sneaky. So you'll have, like, let's say Androxus or Eevee, they'll come through mid and blink up. Or they might, in some cases, they might go all around. Like if it's a Buck with Master Riding, he might go all the way around just to cause some confusion. If you're playing, like in the games we had against Interlopers, when we played on Serpent Beach, they were playing like straight up solo style where everyone just goes alone. Like they had the Maeve, they had the Eevee, and they had the Cassie, and all three of them were just doing their own thing. So the Cassie would come up top here and would fire over the water here. And then Maeve might come through mid, and Eevee might go all the way around. So it depends a little bit on the comp, but generally speaking, we're going to talk straight up 5v5 fight here, maybe 4-on-4 with one sneaking. That's the most general thing you're going to see, especially in like the beginning of competitive. Like in the beginning of competitive, in lower end teams in competitive, not ranked, in actual competitive esports play, then you're going to see either a 5-on-5 fight here or a 4-on-4 and then one person coming around. So in that case, it straight up comes down to comp what you want to do, right? If you have the Fernando or if you have the Makoa, something with a shield that they can put up for your teammates, you're going to run across and you're going to just push them. The main thing there is that you want to keep control of the high ground. Something that's very important for Serpent Beach is having characters that can get up on the high ground. Like if you don't have characters like Eevee, Androxus, Maeve, Buck, things that can get up on the high ground without going all the way around. Like if you don't have that, you have to come all the way around back here and come up the stairs. Or if we're talking for the attack, then you're gonna have to like jump up top like that. Or you're gonna have to go all the way around like that instead of just jumping up like that. So if you don't have any of those characters, then it's very important to take the high ground, push the high ground, and like force them off of it, right? Because if you jump down, if you're playing, let's say Cassie, right, and you're standing up here and you're just shooting over the water, and then you jump down here. If you're standing down here, you're pretty much fucked. Like in 99% of the scenarios, if they're playing correctly, then you're pretty much fucked here. If you have a shield in front of you, you're fine, or if you're standing next to a Ying illusion, you're probably going to be fine. But if you're just doing this in solo play, and you're having this 5-on-5 team fight here, then you're just going to get boned if you jump down here. Because if you want to escape, your only route is to either go into them, like your only option is to go into them here, which is not a good idea. If you're taking damage and you want to escape, going into them is never going to help you. Or your other option would be to come down here. And if we're talking a fight at the start, then generally speaking, they're going to have a tank or they're going to have someone that's going to, even if they're up here at the start, they're going to jump down towards the point. Because that's the main thing. In competitive play, what you're going to see here is that the second you get a pick here, so if you're having this fight here, the second you get one kill, then you're going to see the support or the tank, like if it's a Ruckus or a Ying or whatever, they're going to go straight to point. They go, okay, we're starting to win this fight. I'm going to go start capping. I'm going to make the most out of the time we have right now. We're winning the fight. I'm going to start capping so that by the time they fully reset, then they're going to already have to get on point. Like, if you can just get on point. That's why Ruckus is so good right now. It's because he's essentially doing what Barrack used to do. He's just better than what Barrack used to do, where he's going to just get on point. And if you waste time shooting him, like if you're standing up here and you're just shooting at him, then he's just going to come back here and he's going to heal up. And if he's going to come back here and you want to commit to him and finish him off, you're going to have to go really deep to try to kill him. So the Ruckus just stands here, and while people are shooting him, then everyone else is just collapsing on them. They're just coming around here, and they're just getting angles on them. They're getting up here, they're poking everyone up here, and they're getting like free damage, and they're going to win that fight eventually. But if you don't shoot the Ruckus, he's going to be capping the whole time. He can still poke from up here, especially if he has a Cauterize, which a lot of them do, right? Like, Ruckus is so good with Cauterize because he can just stand here on the very edge of the point, and he can just spam up there. And anyone who peeks at all is just going to get Cauterized. And like their best idea is, okay, well, we're getting poked out, we need to fall back, and their only place they can fall back to is either jump down to point or try to get down here. If they get down here, then the Ruckus is still going to be shooting them, and it's just as bad. Plus, you're going to have characters up here from this side's team. They're going to come all the way around here, they're going to stand up here, and they're going to have high ground advantage. And if they have this high ground advantage, you're just going to be fucked if you're standing down here or over here. So that's why it's so important to keep the high ground and to like push them here. Now, if they don't have a Ruckus or a Barrack or a Ying that's just going to point, then you have to decide if you want to commit to the fight or not, right? If you don't get a pick, if you're pushing here and you don't get a pick, you don't get a free kill, you don't get someone out of position or whatever, then you still you basically have to decide if you want to commit really hard to this. Like, if you have a Makoa ult, then you might commit to it harder. If you have a Fernando ult, you might commit to it harder. It just depends on the ult scenario. Then it depends on, can we actually win a straight up 5-on-5 team fight or not? And then it also comes down to, okay, do they have an Eevee flanking? Do they have an Androxus flanking? If you see that they have an Androxus flanking, or you only see 4 people up here, then you know that the Eevee or Androxus or Buck is flanking. Then it's very important for whoever's in the back to be aware of this. Like, usually it's going to be the healer in the back, right? If you're playing Snake, who can be pretty aggressive, then the Snake's going to be pushed up probably to here if everyone else is pushing. Everyone else is going to be up here fighting, and the Snake's going to be back here. He's going to heal, put a gourd on himself probably, because he knows that someone's flanking. And then his job is to just chill here, make sure everyone's healed, and the second you get a kill, he's just going to go through here and stand on point. Because he can still do a lot of work from here. He can throw up a gourd, he can still heal anyone that peeks him, and if they commit really hard, like if your team's committing really hard, they're going to push them back to here, in which case you can heal them through main. So again, if you have the high ground control, and you're playing characters that can't get up on the high ground afterwards, it's super important to push here. If you do have characters that can get up on the high ground, that's a very different story. That's a situation where you can go, okay, well, do we out damage them? Do we out heal them? Like, what is our advantage here with the comp? So if you have the main 2 things is, what healer do you have? Do you have Ying or Snake? Ying is a shit aggressive healer, because if you're pushing up here, Ying can't really heal you up here. If she has ult, then it's okay. If she doesn't have ult, then there's nothing she can do about it. Like, if you want, Ying is a much more defensive healer because you have to back up to where the illusions are. Whereas Snake can heal very aggressively. He can push with the team. He can ult for the team and help win the team fight, and he can continue to heal them even if you're pushing forward, which is not the case at all with Ying. So that's the main thing. Like, which healer do you have? And then also, what ults do you have? Do you have aggressive ults or defensive ults? So something like Ruckus. Ruckus is a very defensive ult. His ult is used to respond to the other team's ults. So if a Makoa is a lot of the time, the basic combo you'll see, and you saw this a lot at HRX and the week or 2 after, is the Fernando and Ruckus combo, where they're going to push you really hard. You just pop the Fernando ult and the Ruckus ult at the same time, and it doesn't matter what ults they use, they're going to die. Like, if an Eevee ults you, if an Andro ults you, they're all just going to die, because nobody can die in the Fernando ult, and the Ruckus is going to blow you up. So it depends on what types of ults you have. Like, a Drogo's ult is obviously like offensive, an Andro ult's offensive, a Snake ult, well, actually a Snake ult's kind of 50-50. What else is there? There's Buck ult would be an aggressive one. Mave ult would be considered an aggressive one, I suppose. And even like Makoa. Makoa is also very aggressive ult, whereas the Ruckus, the Fernando, they're all more defensive. You use them in response to their ults in most cases. So you have to consider, like, what healer do we have, what ults do we have? If you have the defensive ults, then your job is to say, okay, well, we don't have the pressure to push them. We can't really force them to do anything. We can only respond to what they're doing. Then you play a more patient game. Then you say, okay, we're going to sit up here. We're going to poke you out. We can out-trade you. If you decide to do something, we're going to punish it. If you don't decide to do something, then we're going to get on point. We're going to start pressuring point. So then, again, if you have like the Ruckus Fernando combo, which is a basic combo, maybe not as good right now, but this was a very basic combo for a long time. So if you have the Fernando Ruckus combo, then the Fernando's just going to go here to the middle. He's going to see if we are out-poking them or not. If we are out-poking them, and we have something that can keep him alive, whether it's his ult or whatever, then he can start to push up, and the ruckus can just get on point. And again, it's causing this pressure where they have to do something. If you can force them to act, then you can react much better, because the longer the ruckus is standing on point, the quicker they have to act. The quicker they have to say, okay, we gotta do something, and it causes them to panic, right? It says, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And then they go, okay, let's blow up the ruckus because he's on point. Like we have to deal with this ruckus that's standing on point. You try to deal with the ruckus, and he just pops all his cooldowns, and he just runs around the corner. And then you just wasted everything trying to blow up this ruckus, and you're going to die for it. That's why the ruckus and Barrack have been so successful in the past. So if you have the Fernando here and he's pushing, then even with the defensive comp, you can still push them. It comes down to the picks a little bit. If you have a Shaolin and a Cassie, maybe it's not as good to push them. But if you have an Android and Eevee, then obviously pushing them with the Fernando is going to be really strong. So that's like basic initial team fight positioning. It's you should know based on your ultimate, based on what character you're playing, if you're a defensive or an offensive hero. Obviously, most of you are going to know this. Like again, Androxus and Eevee, they're much more aggressive. They want to make stuff happen. They're the ones that act. And then something like Ruckus, or even like a Barrack, I guess, or Ying would be a more defensive. Like we're going to chill. We're going to back off and wait for them to try to punish us, and then we're going to punish them. We're going to make them act. We're going to make them like try to act instead of acting ourselves. We're going to make them act so we can react to what they're doing. So again, it comes down to what characters you guys play. You guys should all have a general idea of what your character is doing, especially if you're playing your main character, then you'll know kind of what your job is on this first point. The main thing you want to avoid, it's hard in solo queue and whatnot, but the main thing you want to avoid is doing shit for no reason. Like if you've seen 4 people run to this point and have this fight at the start every time, that's when you can start to consider, okay, should I do something differently or try to throw them off? If you're starting off the game and you're playing Drogos, then you should not be coming on the left side trying to look for a sneaky flank, because that's not your role on the team. That's not what your job is on the team. Your job is to come up here and just spam them. Either burn the shield or use your salvo to try to poke them out at the start, and then based on that you can react. It's a more defensive playstyle. Used to be more aggressive on the Drogos, but now it's a much more defensive playstyle. So that's the general positioning for the initial fight. Just I would recommend following this general idea and then adapting to it with your personal playstyle. Everyone obviously does things differently. Each player will have little quirks that they do on each map, so you can absolutely do that, but you should stick to this general idea. If everyone does this general idea, then you're going to start to see better team fights. Like right now in casual games, like a lot of the time you're just going to see people doing shit for no reason, and that's how you end up dying. If you stick together and play as a team, if everyone follows the general strategy, then it's kind of like CSGO, right? You have these general ideas. You have everyone's going to go A, we're going to push long, we're going to whatever it might be. And because you have those general ideas and everyone's on the same page, everyone knows what you're doing. Compared to if you're just playing like silver ranked in CSGO, where everyone's just going to different sites, like different bomb sites. You have fucking 4 people stacking on A when you're defending, when you're CT. So if you stick to the general plan, then it's much easier, and then use your character to be the flexibility. Don't have the general idea in mind and use your character as, okay, I want to execute this plan in a couple of different ways depending on my character. What can Kinessa's job be? I wouldn't recommend playing Kinessa on this map unless you have a very specific team for it. This is more I don't know. Kinessa is just not great. There's too many flank routes in casual and competitive play, so I'm gonna skip the Kinessa on this one. Maybe on another map we can discuss it. So again, like this, it depends a lot on your team comp, but this map especially is very dependent on you seeing what kind of team comp you have. Like look at your ultimates, look at if you even have your ultimates to begin with, whether or not you should initiate a fight or try to react to theirs, and then look at what teammates or what champions you have as your teammates, if you can be aggressive or not. And make sure you're actually utilizing your tanks right. It can be hard sometimes in casuals and in ranked because your tanks don't really know what to do. You might have 3 tanks and you have all three of them standing on point, it's going to happen. In that case, it's just about reaction. It's about, okay, my tanks are standing on point. I cannot be aggressive. If I go aggressive, then I'm just going to die. So you just have to analyze a bit what your team comp is looking like and how they're reacting. That's the most important part in casuals and competitor and ranked. In competitive, obviously you know what your teammate's doing, you have your general plan, and this should be your general plan. Unless you're playing some very specific comp where you want to do a very specific thing, this is generally speaking going to be the plan. And then again, if you want to try to utilize a specific mechanic in your character's kit, then that's another story. Like again, as I said before, Eevee is very good at like sneaking up here and blinking up looking for an ult, or even like coming all the way around, just like trying to be behind so they have to look behind. It's a very easy tactic you can do with your flanks, is that you don't have to actually do anything. If you just come behind here, you can go all the way around or you can sneak here. And if you just stand here, you're forcing a lot of pressure on them. This is what Maeve is really good at right now, is that she can just get behind, and if you don't deal with her, she's going to get a lot of free damage and a lot of free poke. But if you do try to deal with her, let's say you have a Shaolin up on the high ground trying to deal with this Maeve, looking this way, then he's not burning the Fernando shield that's standing here, or the Makoa shield. So that's a very useful tactic you can do, especially on a map like this, with flankers, where you don't actually have to do anything. You can still play it very patiently. You can just stand here and you can just chill out for a bit, see what's going on, and still react to what they're doing. But you're not acting, you're not trying to force the issue. You're trying to just see what they're doing, play it patiently, but you're still actually being annoying and you're being a nuisance for them. So that's general positioning on the team fight. Let's let me see if I can. Let me just turn off monitor couch for a second. I'm going to bring up another image of the same map. Let's see. We'll work on this a bit. Then after the point fight, obviously you have there's two aspects. There's the defending and the attacking. Actually, okay, there's three aspects. There's attacking and there's defending, which both have a lot of the same stuff in them. They're very different, but they have a lot of the same game knowledge and I guess positioning stuff. When you're defending, obviously your big goal is to just stop them from pushing. Your job is to try to kill them as much as possible. You want to always make sure somebody's dead so they can never get a successful push. But more importantly, you need to stay alive. Because if you kill someone and you die, the trade is not good. Like, that's not a good trade. It's never a good trade. The important part is always focus on staying alive. Because if you're trading 1-for-1, then you have no control over what's happening for the next fight. Like, you have zero control whether or not your team, especially in a casual or ranked game, if we're fighting a 4-on-4 where you're not in the fight, but their Eevee or whatever is not in the fight, then you have no control over what's going to happen in the next, in the push. So it's always more important to focus on staying alive. Your job is to just poke and then commit once you have confirmed kills, basically. So if you're standing up here, let's say you're playing Cassie, right? You'll be standing up here, or you'll be standing out here on the balcony, or you're standing up here in fire. Generally speaking, you don't want to be on the low ground if you can avoid it. If you are on the low ground, then you should probably try to stick around here, or you can be around the corner here, and like around the boxes there, and just chill and try to poke them out. But these are both very scary spots to be in case you have a Maeve or an Eevee coming from an angle. You can get blown up really quick. So generally speaking, you want to try to stick to the high ground if you can. If you really have to jump down, stick to these areas, or just come all the way back around and try to get back up again. So the main thing is, if you're standing up on these high grounds, then your job again is just to poke them out. They're going to be coming up through here, and generally speaking, you're going to hold them in the first choke for a while. If you're holding them in the first choke, which is usually around here, the pale is usually about here, then you have good angles from any of these areas. This goes for any character, but especially the ones that can't get back up again. It's very important to stick to these high ground areas because you can poke them out, and if they don't have any characters that can get up top, then that's also very good. Obviously, if they don't have a Bucky or a Maeve or an Andrew that can get up to you, then poking them out is going to be really good, because if they ever poke you out, you can just hide. You can just hide and heal up, and there's nothing they can do about it. They can't commit to you because there's no one that can actually get up to you without going all the way around. So that's something to consider on characters that can't get up. Even characters that can get up, it's very good to hold this positioning. If you're playing something like Maeve or Eevee, a lot of the time you're going to be blinking back and forth and you're going to be behind them, just like on the attack. You can play it very patiently where you're just behind them, causing a commotion basically. So if the payload's here, you'll be out by the point again. You can be either up on this bridge and go off to the right here, or you can be over by, you can come up here on the balcony and just drop down a bit and be a bit annoying. But generally speaking, you'll be in the right area. It has a lot more open area, so you can actually shoot towards the payload. And then, again, your goal is just keep these high grounds. Once you poke them out enough to get a kill, or you, let's say, land a Makoa hook and you get a kill, that's when you can start jumping down and collapsing on them. You go, okay, this is a 5v4 fight. Now we can really push them hard and we can snowball. We can snowball the fight. Make sure that they're all staying dead as long as possible. It's extra good, obviously, if you can stagger them. So if you get the first kill and you kill 3 more people, so now 4 of them are dead and there's just like a ruckus on the point, the ruckus isn't going to do anything to you. So what you can do is you can just wait with the kill, right? You just wait until he starts doing a decent amount of damage and then you kill him afterwards. That way they have to wait another 10 seconds before everyone's going to be back up. So you're just delaying the push as long as possible. So again though, the main thing, if you have the 5v4 fight, if you're starting to snowball the fight, you still have to focus a lot on staying alive. It's really important that you still always focus on staying alive, because if you commit to the fight and they manage to turn it, let's say they might even use an ult for it. They might say, well, they're all really low. I'm going to pop my Makoa ult and we can still win this fight even though we're a man down. So what you do then is, again, focus on staying alive. If you're playing Eevee, you focus on not getting hooked. If you're playing a Cassie, then you focus on not taking too much poke while you're going in, or making sure that you're still in a safe spot when you're committing. So it's always extremely important, because if they do manage to turn that fight around, then you're fucked. Because then you're all gonna get snowballed. One person's always gonna die late. They're gonna do the same thing. They're gonna stagger you. They're gonna make sure that you're respawning at awkward times, and then you're gonna have to get on the payload. And if you have a Cassie that's rolling under the payload to try to buy overtime, then that's not a good scenario. So it's always more important to focus on staying alive. If you really want to, you can get a kill or maybe get 2 kills, and you don't even have to commit. You can just say, alright, we're low, like we need to focus on healing up and staying alive right now, so we don't want them to turn around the fight, so we're just going to back off. They still have to wait. We still bought the 20 seconds or whatever it's going to take for whatever champion you killed to come back. So instead of committing and trying to snowball them really hard, you just go, okay, that's fine. We'll take the 20 seconds that we bought, we'll focus on staying alive, we'll get our positions again, we'll make sure the Cassie gets back up on the high ground or the Shaolin or whatever. Like, just use that time to get positions again and heal up, instead of going, well, we have to commit now. We got the kills, we have to commit and snowball the fight. You don't always have to do that. And it's the same thing on attack. If you're attacking, so let's say it's switched roles now, right? You're the one that's pushing the payload. If you see that they have the Cassie or the Shaolin and you lose a person, then that's your cue to start backing off. And just like before, you have potential to turn the fight if they're really low, but that's your cue to start backing off. Your goal then is to say, okay, well, we need to still keep poking them, so make sure they can't really commit to us really hard, but we need to keep backing off so that someone more doesn't die. Because if someone more dies, then you're just going to get snowballed, and then you're going to have a hard time resetting properly, and you're just wasting time. And that's something that a lot of teams struggle with, us included. We're very bad at this, where we always try to look for poke, we always try to outtrade them, and when we're respawning, we don't reset properly. So this is a big thing. When you're attacking, it's very important to have these angles. You know how they're going to defend now. You know the general idea, right? They're going to poke. They're going to make sure they always have better positions than you, which is very easy on most maps where the defenders usually have better positioning. So your goal is to say, okay, well, you need to figure out what the plan is. You need to figure out if you're sending the tanks on point or if you're sending the tanks flanking. If you're going to try to send the Eevee or the Maeve up to deal with this Cassie or Shaolin. Those are the things you need to figure out beforehand. Like when you first cap, you need to figure out how to defeat these positions, basically. But usually speaking, when you cap, it's because you just want a team fight. That's when it becomes very important to start snowballing them already. Usually what you see, and this is something that a lot of teams have gotten a lot better at, especially like D69, they've always been good at this. They're very greedy with it, but they're also very good at it, where they go, okay, we capped the point, let's put Burrito up here in their spawn, and let's put Sheepa up here. And it's like, even if they die, like all they're doing, they're focusing on staying alive. They're just poking, dismounting, making sure that when we come out of spawn, then they're going to be up here and we have to deal with it. We can't just walk past them, because then they're going to blow us up. So if we're like wasting time trying to kill sheep or Peridot or whoever, then what they're going to do is they're just going to push the payload for free. There's going to be a support on the payload just pushing for free all the time that these guys are buying. Even if they die, then they're getting past these main choke points where the positions aren't relevant anymore. Because if they get the payload to here, then the Cassie or the Shaolin that stands up here is irrelevant. Like, you can do so much less standing here when the payload's already past this choke point. So this is why it's very important to snowball when you're on the attack. When you're on the defense, it's the opposite. It's very important to not get snowballed. You need to make sure that when you die, when you lose the point, you reset fully. Because if you don't reset fully, you're going to run into these problems where there's people in your spawn, just spawn camping you, basically. It's not as common in casuals and ranked, but it does happen sometimes. A good player can really utilize this. So it's very important that you reset properly, you make sure you have your positions, because otherwise you're going to get snowballed. And when you're attacking, it's again the opposite. It's very important that you're making sure you don't allow them to get these positions. This is what they want. This is the end goal for them, is that they want these good positions. They want to put a Shaolin here, or a Cassie here. They want the Eevee or Maeve all the way back here standing behind on this gate. That's what they want. So if you can stop them from getting that by putting someone up here or in here and just annoying them, even if these people die, you're still buying so much time. You're making sure that they don't get positions. But at the end of the day, both for the attack and defense, it comes down to the same thing of focus on not dying. It's something that a lot of people miss out on. That's why you'll see the random Eevee saying, "What are you guys doing? Like, how are we losing this? I have 55 kills." Like, it doesn't matter if you have 55 kills. If you keep dying and you keep getting staggered, it means we can't push. As if you get a kill, what does it matter if two of us die for it? If you end up dying and then we get snowballed, what does it matter if you got that kill? So this is something that's very important to think of in competitive play. In ranked and casuals, it can be very helpful. It's not as relevant because teams usually aren't as coordinated. Usually you can still pick them apart if you're attacking and you don't snowball it. Usually you can still slowly pick them apart if you just out-trade them. If you're the better player, you can still out-trade them. But even in casuals and ranked play, this is still very important, because if you can execute this properly, if you can attack and you know to get into their spawn, you know to waste their time over here, then you're doing your job. Even if you don't get a kill, you're still wasting so many people's time so that your team can win the 4v2 fight over here when 3 people are chasing you. It's something that a lot of people don't see the value in, especially if you're playing something like Eevee. You don't have to get kills, you don't have to get damage. If you're wasting their time, you're doing your job. Like, that's the best thing an Eevee or a Maeve or an Androxus can do, is that they make the other team have to spend time on you. And in that meantime, you have your tanks who are just punishing anyone that comes to the payload. And the same thing on defense. If you know how to hold positions and you know how to properly execute a snowball and properly hold your position, like if you're standing up here as Cassie and you're just shoulder peeking this Torvald or this Ruckus on point, or if the Eevee's blinking up and you out-trade her each time because you're holding this position so well, then that's something that a lot of people don't see the value in. But if you know how to do this, you're going to win more games. You're going to win more points. You're going to defend more successfully or attack more successfully if you know these basics. I think that's honestly about it for Serpent Beach. I mean, Serpent Beach is a very good map because it has very clear-cut positions. It has very clear-cut advantages in comps. Like we talked about before, it has very clear-cut, okay, we have the Ruckus. That means we have a more defensive comp where we want to have the Ruckus on point and make sure we're playing it in such a way that we force them to react. We force them to act and then we can react to their actions. Whereas if you have the aggressive comp, again, you can decide the pace of the game. But honestly, that's about it. Again, Serpent Beach is a very simple map for this. It has very obvious positional advantages, since it has high grounds that you can't get up to if you're not certain characters. So it's very important to draft in a certain way. It's very important to make sure that you have these characters that can